Okay. Where did my screen go? Here it is. Yeah, so I know you guys are used to, playing your edge, so just keep doing that. Let's see. You guys can't see my screen yet, though. So just gonna, there we go. All right, my little reminder to hit record. I kind of did this, yeah. One big thing that TED is looking for is your passion. They want you to really believe in this, to really feel this down to your toes. And luckily for you guys, I think that's clear. You guys all have lived a big piece of your big idea. And so that's going to be no problem for you. So on that note, I would love to have us introduce ourselves to each other a little bit here, because we're going to be getting to know each other a lot. So because we're going to be working together, through this whole class. I'm going to be presenting, and then you guys are going to be pairing off, doing some work, bouncing some ideas off each other, and then coming back to the group together. So I would love to know, I'm going to change this question a little bit. What makes your heart sing is great. That is what I want to know, but I want to get a little more concrete on that topic here. And I want to ask you, what makes your heart sing? What would make your heart sing after the TED Talk? What are you envisioning? What's best case scenario here for you? You guys signed up for a big commitment for this class, time and money, energy, vulnerability, courage. So what's best case scenario for you guys as far as what could happen with this TED Talk? I'm going to take it off my million windows open and everything. I'm just going to give you time to think here. If you could give this TED Talk either on TED or just on another stage, our showcase event or another stage you have, and something could happen from that.
I think trying to inspire someone to, or maybe that you can relate to someone, that they can take something away from what you've experienced in life. Maybe somebody who can change the way they perceive something instead of looking at it in a negative context, trying to find a positive context out of it.
Thank you, Kathy. Yep, that really is how it goes, right? Just could be just one person that it changes. Thank you. Thanks for going first too. Way to go.
That's not always my best forte.
Well, you're playing your edge. Good job.
I would love it to go viral. I would love increased business and multiple speaking opportunities coming from it with different groups, but primarily women's groups of all ages. And I would love to be interviewed by Ellen DeGeneres.
There you go.
Fabulous. Fabulous. I'm going to write that down here.
Me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Would love it to go viral, be invited to women's groups. Cool.
Paid speaking engagements. Let's put it.
Paid speaking engagements. Awesome. Yes.
That made me nauseous just to hear that, Beth.
Really?
Yeah, that's big. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I just want people to think differently about sex. And that's true. That's definitely true. But I'm really inspired by your big thinking. It scares me to think about it going viral, so that's pretty big. I think that I want to be known as an expert for people to feel comfortable having conversations about sex and sexuality with me.
Ooh.
I think it's, to me, I feel like I want this to, I feel like I own that I'm an expert in this field, and I am really ready to be seen. And so I think that my big thing is that I am seen as the expert, or as an expert, not the expert.
I like that.
Seen as an expert.
As
Oh,
an expert in my field.
yeah. And, you know, my hope for you is that you can feel that someone is seeing you as an expert, right?
Thank you.
Like there's just certain things that are happening that are showing you've got that expert status in other people's minds too.
Thank you.
The way is paved and all that. Awesome. And I couldn't tell if you wanted me to write down viral. Are we on board with viral, Gina?
Why not? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, let's do it.
About that and want to be the go-to for it, you got to be viral.
Let's go viral. Cool. I wrote it down. Awesome.
If I get this into a TED Talk, I would love to start to be part of the worldwide trauma conversation, so that what I do already can change it, or in amazing time. And there are people like Norman Deutsch, Stephen Porges, Bessel van der Kolk, a lot of people who need to know what I'm doing, and this is what I need. This is my contribution to the world's component, and it needs to be out there.
Whoa. So getting the attention of the giants in your field.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I know already, right? I've had the conversations with Stephen Porges. I've had some of these conversations with Norman Deutsch. I've had some pieces, but I'm not yet anything. I don't yet have value in those stages. And I'm hoping that this gives me the presentation to have those stage value, the world value.
Yeah. With some of those leaders.
Yeah, so that we can actually change the way trauma is dealt with, because they've got very slow mechanisms right now. Oh my God, it can take forever to do it. And it needs to get faster, and there are more effective ways if they combine it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maxine. Yes. We're already starting to hear each other's topics and fields and all that good, juicy stuff. So wonderful. Thank you.
For me, yes, but all of you said yes. My talks aren't directly necessarily yet applicable to what I do professionally. So I think, yes, viral, Beth, would be amazing. Ellen DeGeneres is on like one of my long-term lists, so that's awesome. But I think for me, most importantly is, I think as Maxine said, is, to create real change, and that when people are hearing, they don't feel alone in an effort, and they feel like there's some real steps to take on complex issues.
And, I know a little bit about your topics. Do you have certain people in mind that you want to really get this? Kind of like Maxine was like naming them, but even just a general category of people?
They're so pervasive. I mean, yes. Depending upon the talk, certainly like corporate teams, larger organizations, and frankly, just people.
Yeah.
Like both of mine are highly applicable to almost everybody. And I would say the second one, schools, politicians. I think that's one of my frustrations is, similar to what Maxine said, change is happening too slow and there's too much at stake. And so to be a catalyst for an effort to actually create real change, I don't know who those people are, but I will think about that because I think that is important, and I was really impressed by Maxine listing them out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I can feel it. Cool. Speedier change. Let's do it. That sounds great. All the way from the individual level to the giants in the field to the whole groups of people. The policies need to change. Corporations need to change. Man, that's one of my sticky points for sure. Okay, ladies, well, you're in the right room. Let's do this. I'll the next slide is perfect, so I'll share again because I want to warn you about what this is going to take and what to expect. Every class session will have some content. About a third of the time, we'll do some small group work. A third of the time with a pair or two people, and this is your chance to get some work done during class so that I don't send you away with hours of homework. Get it done right during class with the help of bouncing it off each other. And then we'll have time to share it as a larger group too. Of course, we're going to be positive and respectful to each other. Everyone's coming from a different background. I mean, I know I wouldn't put you in a group together if I didn't think you guys were already going to do that, but I just want to remind us all that these are on purpose really controversial topics a lot of time. So you're going to have opinions that differ from each other. So we just want to, you know, respect that they might not be representing your opinion up there. But it's still okay to share from your perspective. Just like at the end of sharing your perspective, just don't hold on to it. Just don't attach to it. Let them have that perspective and do what they want. As we've already been saying, play your edge. I always believe in, you know, I want you to stretch, but if it gets over into the area of strain where it's freaking you out and you're in the panic zone, you know, that's not good for anybody. So stretch, not strain. Lean out a little bit, but don't lose the core of you. So if I make a suggestion or someone else makes a suggestion that just isn't fitting, please speak up. There's no use in pretending that suggestion is going to work for you, and then at the end you end up with a talk where you're like, well, I'm never going to give this talk. You know, that's not what we're about. The reason we have the showcase at the end of this class is because I want you to get a talk you actually really want to give and are going to give, not something that sits on a shelf. So this is it. It's where the rubber meets the road. It gets real, and I love that. Absences, a note about absences, we already talked about Labor Day, but please let me know if you're going to be absent, because if you're gone and I don't know, then we all wonder about you. Like, I don't know where Jules is. I don't know. So I want you to tell me if you're going to be gone. Watch out if something comes up in the last 24 hours before class, because if you're canceling the day of, I just want you to extra ask, is there something I'm resisting about this class? Because, you know, being here is, of course, the best way to get the information. As we said, it's all recorded and everything, but being here, you're going to get a little more feedback. So don't let resistance get in the way. Just reach out to me and tell me you're having resistance, and we can work through it, okay? And then the other thing I want to say about what to expect is that even though you're going to get some clarity around your idea, even tonight, okay, this whole process is going to get messier first. We're going to unpack your idea. It's going to get a little messy in the middle there. You know, you're going to end up with a beautiful masterpiece, but in the middle, it's going to be messy. It's just the process. So by class, you know, 4 or 5, when you're like, Amanda, how am I ever going to get this talk to come back together? Stay with me. Stay with each other. Stay in it. It does come back together in the end. It just, you know, looks different behind the scenes than what you see on the polished TED Talks that we're going to be watching here, okay? So, yeah, everybody on board for that? Awesome, awesome. Me too. Me too. I will stick with you in your messiness. If in the middle of your, you know, talk or something, you're like, I don't even know if I believe what I originally thought was like truer than true. You know, it's okay. We'll work through it. I've been down this road a bunch of times. It'll iron itself out. Okay, so the goal for this class right now, like just tonight, is just what is your TED Fresh idea? I want to share with you 3 different types of TED ideas. Oh, apparently right now. And that's all we're trying to get to, is just what is your TED Fresh idea? So you can actually think of this as you're wanting to find your title of your talk, basically, okay? And you want it to be powerful. So yeah, so you all have ideas for your talks. So if you already know exactly the topic you're gonna talk about, then we want to get that powerful title. Okay? If you are one of a couple of people that are like debating which even topic to talk about, then I want you to choose the topic sometime in the next, hopefully, hour. And I want you to get that talk title in the next week. All right? Because we want some power punch talk titles. We want to punch these guys in the face. That's how we get these attention of the movers and shakers.
How many syllables?
How many syllables? Yeah. I'm going to giggle for everyone else because that's a funny question, but I know, Maxine, you're serious. Okay. So, Maxine, what can I tell you? Less than 12. Okay. Short.
Per word?
No. No, total in the title. Okay. So I worked
Can I
with,
go over 3 on some words?
I doubt it. I doubt it. So I worked with Maxine for a long time, and this is a great time to bring up, you know, in order to really have a talk that stands out, you want to bring it down to a level that everybody's going to resonate with. Okay? And so we're not giving a talk at an academic conference, right? TED is about relatable and accessible information. If you don't want to think about dumbing it down, think about it being accessible to someone who is not in your field. All right, so let me give you some titles. So, okay, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but one main type of TED Talk is a challenge to the status quo. Right? Something's happening and you need to shake people by the shoulders and go, no, we're not doing it that way anymore. You can't, you know, say smile more to women. Or you can't call Inuits by the old word of Eskimo, right? Like that's, oh, something is done and over and we need to go on to a new phase now. So here's some examples where they have put the challenge to the status quo. And you can look up these TED Talks. This is the actual name of the TED Talks, right? They've put their challenge right in their title. In praise of conflict. Praise and conflict don't go together. So that's a challenge to the status quo. Why your business needs dissenters. That's a long one, and it's still only 8 syllables, Maxine. Our approach to innovation is dead wrong. Okay, now that one doesn't give away what the actual new solution is, but it's letting you know I am going to challenge the status quo on innovation. So you guys could borrow from this, you know, what if one of your ideas is this or that is dead wrong. This or that needs to go. Something like that. Deb's talk that she did that got her on stage in Milwaukee was the power of a C. The power of getting a C. Instead of an A, everybody wants an A or an A+. She did the power of getting a C. So, you know, that's like, oh, I don't know. What is that? You gotta find out. Okay, let's keep moving here. The next type of TED Talk is a solution to a pressing problem. Of course, this is what I think of when I think of TED Talks, is like some big problem of the day, and they're going to solve it for me. So let's look at the 3 examples here. Simple hacks for life with Parkinson's, right? Parkinson's it's not everybody. They're not trying to talk to everybody, just people with Parkinson's. That's okay. It doesn't have to solve every problem for everybody. It doesn't have to be, you know, a huge population that has this problem. One of the people I saw coached at TEDx Mile High, she was just talking about the drinking water in Flint, Michigan. It was really cool. She was a little 12-year-old, 6th grader, and she had the solution for Flint, Michigan. So you're bringing up the problem and you've got a new solution for it. 3 ways to kill mosquitoes. The power of introverts. Really good. Solve a pressing problem. Okay, and then the 3rd solution, just wave your hand at me. I can see all you guys, so just wave your hand at me if you, oh, you want to slow down or ask a question? You good? Okay.
You told us to wave.
Yeah, sorry. I meant to say, if you have a question, wave at me. If you want me to slow down, wave at me. But I'm assuming you guys are keeping up, no problem. Okay, and then what was the 3rd one? Okay, a surprising firsthand experience. This is another great one that is slightly more story focused than the other ones. It gets to be more story focused. I just listened to a TED Talk today about a woman who grew up in China in the era of the one-child policy, and she had a little brother, and she felt certain ways about that. So, you know, that's a surprising firsthand experience. So I'm looking at you, Jen. You know, you've got some real life experience here in some big problems with your daughter's school, and that yours could be a surprising firsthand experience. Okay, look at these examples here. I am the son of a terrorist. Here's how I chose peace. See how he's not pulling any punches with that? Bam, it's in your face. My escape from North Korea. Boom. How electrotherapy changed me. Just put it out there. Beth, you're seeing that? Yeah, that's a reaction, okay? Beth you're on mute, Beth, so we couldn't hear if you said anything, but, you know, shocking, right? I mean,
I use energy therapy, so just, you know, of course it's going to change you.
Yes.
I don't know. I find it very funny.
Yes, it's intense. I mean, shock therapy, right? So we want to shock them with the title, shock them into listening, clicking, paying attention. I like the term punch them in the face. You want to just use your punchiest stuff to get this title and topic to address one of these 3 things. So let me go up to here. So these are the 3 main types of TED Talks that I have seen, that, you know, that I've worked with and stuff. There are 2 more I'll show you guys, but where does yours fit here? And then wherever it fits, like that's what you want to use to help you make the most punchy title, the most relevant title, the most title where you're like, I have to hear more about that. Okay, so I'll just show you guys the other 2, which are presenting research data, which also is a great one. That's basically what Brene Brown did. You know, she did a long research study over several years and she presented the data. And then demonstrating new technology. So, you know, I guess I could see a couple of you guys have some research that you could present, but I don't know if you would call it, I don't know if you would call it more research data or more solutions to problems. I'm kind of looking at you, Maxine, if you would really want to call yours research data.
Well, if I look at what was presented at Oxford, that was my research data.
Okay, so maybe you could be our our first number 4 there, which is fine. It's the same process for all of these.
Then it's written.
That's already written. Good. Just need to get it into 10, 15 minutes. I want you guys to shoot for 10 minutes, okay? Because 15 is what will actually happen once we get the audience there with you and everything, okay? Okay, so tonight you're getting like this overview of the content that we're going to be working with all throughout the time, okay? So if you feel overwhelmed by this, because I'm about to go into another slide here, just letting you know, like, this is the first day of the class, right? It's going to be an overview, but we're going to have time to integrate and use all this stuff too. All right, so I have been talking about the 5 core elements of TED Talks to all of you probably. This is what we found TED is really looking for, and I'll bring it up here. The 5 elements of TED Talks. This is what the coaches continually pulled out of the speakers that had already gotten a talk. They still needed to see all these 5. And same thing with the people, even more so with the people who are still applying. They're like, don't forget your story. Don't forget the problem. Don't forget to reframe it for us. It was just constantly with these 5 elements. So yeah, so a problem that afflicts many or afflicts some people very deeply. Very important. You guys all have that. A story. You want to bring in usually a personal story. It's okay to tell somebody else's story, but usually it's a personal story, and it's not a story that takes, where you're glossing over 15 years, right? Or even a year of time sometimes. You want to have a story that has individual moments in it with characters that we can see and feel and relate to and things like that, okay? So we're going to spend a whole class just on the story. This is so important. Obviously, a fresh solution. What are you saying? Even if it's just a new phrase, I'm working with a woman who's working on her keynote right now, and she survived cancer, and she used to judge people who had cancer, that they had attracted it to themselves, that it was, their fault in some way. And so she has a whole reframe about it, but it's just a way of thinking. Her fresh idea is just a way of thinking differently, where now she says, these people aren't, getting a punishment. It's not their fault. These people have taken on a PhD course. And that's how she reframes cancer for herself. Or anything someone's going through that's really big. So you want to have a fresh solution frame / even a power phrase can be really impactful. A power phrase or a practice can be great. And then, of course, you want to have some research backing up your major claims. This is super important for TED. They do not want you to be just sharing an opinion. And, again, we'll have a whole class just on this, but you want to pick out research that backs up anything that someone could call into question. So it doesn't have to be research that backs up your idea necessarily. It has to be research that backs up the thing that you are standing on, right? Any assumption that you're making along the way, any generalization that you're making along the way, anything that you're about to draw a conclusion from, that's what you want to have research for. So did you guys who watched the comic book talk that I sent out? Okay, good. Thank you for watching that. Okay, so his research, first of all, he's awesome because he told his research kind of in a story. But one major assumption he was making was that comic books were not okay in a classroom, right? That this is like a real belief that people had. And so he went back and researched, why weren't comic books okay in a classroom? Oh, because this one guy made a stink about it, and then there was a law or a policy made about it. So that was his research that now proved that he wasn't just making it up, that comic books don't believe in a classroom, which then made his new, fresh idea that much more relevant, because he is saying, we need this to stop. And it's not just going to stop if it's a matter of opinion. We need to change this or that policies and practices around it. So we want to do some research. And then, connection to a big picture issue. And I'll tell you what, this number 5 is the power that you guys are talking about when you told me your best case scenarios. Okay? The connection that makes it go viral is that it's going to relate to a big issue that you can just throw a rock and find somebody who's talking about that issue. All right? Stuff that's up right now. Stuff that's controversial. We want to tie it to that. So, trauma. You heard that word. Sex, right? Gina's topic is all about sex. And so sex is up right now, right? Gender stuff, sexual identity stuff, sexual orientation stuff is still up. It's a huge issue. So even though you're like swimming in the water of it, right? You're like, obviously my talk is about sex, so obviously it relates to gender issues and sexuality and stuff. No, it's not obvious yet. You want to make sure that's in your talk. You are tying it in exactly the way that you want it to be heard by people that are talking about your issue and its neighboring issues. Okay, and some of you, like you, I'm looking at you, Jennifer, your talks, both of your ideas for your talks are just big issue things, as we talked about on the phone. School safety and school shootings and things like that, that's just an issue that's up. So you just want to make sure you're addressing that, because if you think about that, a group that's wanting to maybe hire you to speak, they might have that idea within themselves. Oh, we need to bring somebody in about school safety or about being comfortable with sex or whatever, right? And then you want to be the person they think of. Trauma. We've got a couple people working on trauma. So definitely put that in your talk. Don't assume that it's just going to be there anyway. Whew. Okay, that's the big content for today, the big overviews. I'd like to just kind of take a couple of shares, what you're hearing, just real quick, and then I'm going to put you into some pair small groups to talk about your particular talk. So what did you guys hear in all that? What struck you?
That I have too many ideas.
You have too many ideas. Yeah. It's a good one, Beth.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I know. It really sucks. So here's a great idea for you, Beth, is writing down some of the 5 elements for each talk. And then when I put you into pairs, right, talking about a couple of your big ideas that have a lot of those elements naturally there. They're easy to think of how it ties to a big issue. Oh, here's the research I could maybe do on that. So jot some notes about which idea is naturally fitting, and then see what lights your partner up. Like, ooh, really want to hear if you talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Great question, and thank you for bringing it up. Anyone else? What struck you in all that content there?
Audience, the kind of audience that this is for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it, change that.
What's that?
It changed the audience. So there are lots of topics, right? I could talk on anything. But what I want to change is trauma, but really it's too specialized.
Trauma is too specialized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So if we shift it instead, sorry, you don't think so, Beth?
No, that's not my opinion. So many people have had trauma and they're not willing to talk about it. So it's really a bigger issue, I think, in that you would attract the people who hopefully would be interested and want to heal from it and learn different ways that they can get through it more quickly.
And I happen to know that your practice is focused on kids. What about kid trauma? Does that still feel too specialized?
I think, okay, so I'm hitting the thing that I hit over and over and over again, is that when I come in, I have a lot of background knowledge. I forget what I know. And then when I talk about it and give it to someone else, they mess it up. Right? And trauma is one of those you should not mess up, because then it's a really bad thing. Because then you double whammy the person. So if I shift it instead and we deal with anxiety and head control, which is in the same ballpark, right? How many children have no head control, so much anxiety, and are having meltdowns and dysregulation? So if we bring that in instead, so instead of going trauma, which induces no head control in the first place because they're all losing their heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go via a different route rather than some of the trauma release pieces, which would be useful. And I'd love actually to get out there, but maybe this is a different platform for that. Not that platform. Maybe the anxiety is a better platform.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, anxiety and trauma both ring to me as problems that are intense for people. That people, they're searching for them on Google, they're searching for them to speak at their groups, they're researching both. So to me, I would write down anxiety and trauma as like big words that if you can get one of those into your title, you're on the right track here.
I think we can go for the Back to Sleep program and see if we can debunk that. Okay, I just stuck a name in there, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just wrote down a title for you, Maxine, that, I could share, missing links in healing trauma in kids. Because I know some of Maxine's material. How many, Gina? 9? 11. Oh, got it right in there. So we could even shorten that up, no problem. But healing trauma in kids, and that you have a missing piece of that. And because I know a little of your material, like she's literally talking about missing links in the brain that she helps fill in. So, anyway, it's just a way to package it. Yeah, when you talk about your reflexes work.
Okay, I can see how they can do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And that's just one idea. Me, I like to get a few on the table that would all be good, because I like to, when I'm trying to punch it, I want to land a really good punch and then see if I can land a little bit harder one. Does that make sense? Like, get your best idea out on the paper and then try to see if you can make it even more of a punch, of a punchy topic, title, any of those. Okay.
I feel like trauma is a much more of a big word than anxiety, honestly. And it could be just because I work in the sex world. So I feel like trauma is much more prevalent in the communities and the people that I show up with, as opposed to anxiety. I mean, there is anxiety, and that can be part, but I feel like trauma and PTSD and CPTSD, like I hadn't heard about CTPSD. Now that's all everyone's talking about. So to me, just from my experience of hearing you, even just when you say trauma, I feel like that's a huge buzzword right now. And even though I hear you say we may be getting it wrong, that to me would be like, then I need you. I need you more to explain it to me in a kindergarten level, because in my work, you know, I have fear all the time that I re-traumatize people just by saying sex, just by saying the word. So that's just my input. I don't know if we're allowed to do that, but I just did it.
Awesome. This is great.
I'm glad you did.
Yes, I'm glad you did too. And it's exactly what I want you to do when I pair you up.
Oh, great.
Okay. So just talk out your ideas a little bit and get the other perspective and share what rings true and punchy to you for each other. And Beth?
Well, I just thought of a title. Somebody can hopefully think of one for me. Healing trauma. We've got it all wrong. So that goes back to that one slide where. So.
Yeah, and you know, to me, and I'm biased because my kiddo works with Maxine, so I'm always thinking in kids, but healing trauma in kids, we've got it all wrong.
We seem to have it wrong in adults as well.
I agree, and I don't want to pigeonhole you, but I do think that trauma is big enough that you can niche.
We can go in.
Yeah. Okay, let me get some chat rooms started here. Where are my chat rooms?
What are we doing in the chat room again?
Just exactly what we just did for Maxine.
Okay, great.
Right? She's gonna, your partner's going to share some ideas, and you're going to help them punch it up a notch, or share with them, hey, this actually really is, this is hitting me. This is what's hitting me about your.
And so our end goal is to try and have a couple of titles.
Yeah, or get closer, right? Get closer. I'm so sorry, you guys. This isn't my normal room, and I don't see where I can start your, break you into breakout rooms, unfortunately. So, don't even know where to look, honestly, because it just is right there usually. Okay. Well, sorry about that. I will definitely fix that for next time. Maybe we could have a couple other people share their ideas and help them punch up in a group like we did with Maxine.
So can we do like maybe like what, 2-minute hot seats, or do we have enough time for just do maybe even 60-second hot seats?
I think we have time for, because I was going to give you guys 15 minutes, so we could probably do some 3-minute hot seats. Okay, we did Maxine, so she's punched up a bit. And she's still wrestling, right? She hasn't landed quite, but she's further along. So who else would like to move further along?
I'll go since I'm unmuted.
Okay, great.
So I'm Gina. I am passionate about helping people talk about sexuality the same way they order Starbucks coffee. So generally there's no shame in saying exactly what you want. You know, I like a venti vanilla latte, extra hot, whipped cream on the side. I'd like you to call me Sophia. Generally, there's no shame in that. And boy, if we could talk about sex the same way with just like, it's just coffee, I feel like our whole world would be different.
Yeah. Yes. So huge.
I also feel like it, I call them emotional STDs. So shame, trauma, and drama are what get in the way of people embracing their sexuality or their sexual expression. And so I feel like that's a buzz or two. So I call them emotional STDs. I do specialize working with people with STIs also. So that's kind of a fun twist or link. We decided not to like do the buzz just talking about sex with herpes or an STI, but to maybe focus just on the shame piece. So,
okay, can we get a couple of shares of what's hitting you as punchy and something you would click on about anything Gina shared?
I was watching The Duchess on Netflix, and it was about the Duchess of Devonshire. And they were so open about sex. It's like, well, it was an arranged marriage. He had his, woman that he loved on the side, and she fell in love with another person, and the Duke was furious. And she's saying, why can't I do this? You're doing it. And he put all these restrictions. She comes back down, sits down at the table and says, well, I'm pregnant with Gray's child. And they, create a solution for her to go away for a year and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was just completely normal for them to talk about it. So I don't know if it's the puritanical thing that our country isn't as open. Is it parental? Is it generational? I don't know the answers to that. But I thought it was very interesting to see that expressed.
It's the repression is yes.
Okay.
All of that. Religion, societal, stigma.
How does it hit you if her talk was, can you catch emotional STDs?
That's very catchy. It's like, what's that?
Do you have to know what an emotional STD is? Does that kind of hook you and go, what? But not like, whoa, that's weird. I don't know what that is and I'm going to leave it alone. Or does it go, wait a second, do I have an emotional STD?
I love that because, STIs in general are so common and there's so much stigma around it. And I love this idea of almost twisting in the two of the catching part.
The catch, right.
Because that's the stigma. That's the stigma of STDs and STIs is
You're going to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
What does the I stand for?
Infection. They changed that about 4 years ago from disease to infection.
Okay. Oh, see, I've just
Thank
been
you.
using them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Jen, Kathy, Maxine, anything that grabs you about this topic?
Well, I know when I was growing up, you weren't allowed to talk about it at all. My parents were divorced, and, when I became of age and had my period, my mother wouldn't even talk to me about it. It was like, if you need pads, leave me a note in my room. So everything I learned came out of my biology book at school. You weren't allowed to talk about it. And it was quite the opposite when I raised my daughter. My daughter's very open with me about their relationship, her and her husband's relationship. Sometimes I have to say, la, 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 too much information. It's my father was the same way. My father did not hold back. If I had a question, he would give me a very, very honest answer. And he was, he didn't believe in lying about things. If you have a question, ask a question. There's no stupid question unless you don't ask. And I guess
Kathy, you're describing this pretty traditional, right, way of relating to this. So what about Gina's topic grabs you? Because I do think there is a stigma that
from a certain generation, like when I was raised, even when I'm around other people my age, if you say sex, their face turns red. It's like it's a dirty word. And it shouldn't be. And yes, it would grab me because I would want to know am I kind of emotionally stunted about some of it, even though I think I'm a pretty open person about it. But there are some things I think I discussed with you, Amanda, that, I haven't talked with my family about because of the fear of reaction.
A stigma.
Yeah, there's a stigma out there about it. So I think for me, I would be very interested in if I saw something out there that said, if, could sex have emotionally traumatized you? And there were other situations from being a child that you want to think that as an adult you've overcome those, but maybe you haven't.
You haven't. Yeah. As I was listening to this, I just wrote down this one last title, and then we'll let Gina percolate on this. But how to order your next cup of sex.
Oh, I love that, because I love that analogy. That was so good.
I love ordering sex like Starbucks. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good.
Okay.
Or even using that. Have you ordered sex like Starbucks?
Yeah. There's a good TED Talk to watch. It's old, so I hope there's been more since this TED Talk, but it's about changing the metaphor from baseball. We use baseball metaphor with sex.
The pizza.
You've seen that one? Yeah.
Love that
Amazing.
one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great work, Gina. Thank you for being open with this and letting us contribute in to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Who's next? Who's ready for a punch up?
I am.
Beth, you ready? All right.
Yeah. I would love to. I just saw a talk that I do have access to all the research and can utilize. It's called Sound the Alarm. And it's about how in the past 20 years, all these diseases have increased exponentially.
Oh,
and
gosh.
they take each one and go from 250%, 500%. Autism is up in the past 20 years, 4,200%.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so they're talking about that and why, why is it? There's a lot of different reasons. It's the food we're eating, it's the soil we're growing our food in, it's electromagnetic fields. But we're looking at toxins, inflammation, digestion, and essential nutrients. And how do we turn the food pyramid upside down so that, and there was one person who did one study who created that pyramid, and pharmaceutical companies, food companies, grain companies really feel at risk if it's turned upside down. Because carbs are at the top. So it was just like, it impacted me so much. And I have a background in health, and it was just something I would like to share and help start a discussion and have some solutions around.
And this is a talk that you saw?
Mm-hmm.
Or, okay, and not a TED Talk.
Correct.
Okay.
And the talk is Sound the Alarm.
Sound the Alarm. Okay. And so, Beth, is this, I know we talked about a couple different ideas for you. Is this something that you would have a personal story around?
I can always do that.
Okay.
I used to work in school, and I would take care of kids. And even when I worked in school 10, 15 years ago, autism was heard of, but not diagnosed as much. It was more ADHD, everybody being on drugs. And now, there's a spectrum, but it's 4,200% in 20 years.
Okay. And then the other thing I'm thinking is, is this the people that you want to draw into your practice? are you working with kids with autism or people with autism or?
Okay, so let's spiral. I want to work with well-to-do women who are in a place where they want to change. They know they can do it, but they want support. So my thing was reclaim joy. So health, wealth, love, perfect self-expression. If you don't have health, you don't have anything.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
as a people group of women 50 years of age and older, it's one of the most powerful demographics in the United States, but it's not cohesive enough. And if we took one subject and we're able to put our minds and our money toward it, it could make a huge impact.
Okay. So this would get you into the health realm.
Well, it's, important. If you feel good, you're happy. You feel joyful. If you're joyful, your vibration's really high and you're going to attract better and better things into your life. If things aren't going well and you're like pissed off all the time, you're going to continue to attract that.
Okay.
So if we can look at one thing where we can start, where we can make a difference, and everything else in your life opens up, I think that would be huge.
Okay. So flipping the pyramid on its head is a fresh idea.
I like that.
What about like turning women's health upside down?
Oh, that makes me think of all kinds of topics, which of course I can direct it as I'm speaking, but there's that could be true because it talks about heart health, diabetes, weight, menopausal weight, so that could be good. Turning women's health upside down.
That's awesome. I wrote down turning your health upside down, but I really like the women's health. I think that's where you're going.
Okay.
Turning women's health upside down. Okay.
Well, I think you can also like take the dig at big pharma as you give just the statistic. I mean, we were all just like, what, 4,200%? Like even just saying that was a big shocker. So it's not even that you have to go down to the autism road. It's just some of the things that you just said were kind of like, whoa. But then you can really hone in on the ideas that you want to get across and do the dig at big pharma.
And all those statistics are either from most of them are from the CDC. So, and they can cite where they're from. And so
that's some easy and very shocking research. Okay. Jen, I see you quiet over there. And Maxine, I thought you had something you wanted to say as well.
I've lost it.
Okay. Can I invite you in, Jen?
Yeah. So I'm curious as to where that would be going, right? Because that's such a big topic of turning women's health upside down. And I think that health and nutrition is a realm that is so muddy that I would be curious where that's going, right? Because there's so many things out there. There's a new thing every single day that I would be curious, but I think I would want to know a little more specificity around it rather than just women's health.
I appreciate your perspective because it is huge and I could end up opening a huge can of worms, So I would have to think about creating a very linear solution for people, like simple steps. Simple step A, do this. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, I really would love to tune into this if it was things that I hadn't heard before. Now, I have heard about turning the pyramid on its head, but I haven't heard it that much. You could definitely add to that discussion from what you've seen in your own life and things like that. Like you said, concrete examples. Okay, well, we kind of need to keep moving, but
I'll play with that more.
yeah.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, really good. Okay, Kathy or Jen, who would like a I'll punch up here.
Well, I'm not sure where to go with mine because the phone conversation we had, there was so many different topics that I could go on, from the trauma to, you know, the a child who's gone through sexual abuse to coming from a broken home, or to learning how to take criticism really well and building on that, and the different perspectives you can take from it. As you know, being a kid that was always being told I was never going to be good enough, I was going to be nothing more than 16 and pregnant, and was never going to make anything of myself. And, you know, and that was, you know, of course, my drunk grandmother telling me that. But, you know, I just don't know which direction to go.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and yours, Kathy, is one that, you know, to a certain extent, we all have this, but you have a particular talk that is story heavy. And it could, if you're not careful, it could become just story, right? So you really got to work on reining that story in and focusing on the idea and then the facts that support your idea. Now, one thing that struck me about what you just said was the taking criticism well, even after a traumatic childhood of verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or any kind of abuse, but especially verbal. And then sometimes I could see how, you know, adding criticism then later in life could harken back to that verbal abuse, but really not meant that way in adulthood.
Right. And I mean, it trying to get yourself into a mindset. And I think that's where I really looked up to my dad, because of things that happened to him in his life as from birth up until he was grown. He always had a very positive outlook, whereas on the polar opposite, my mother was beyond negative, you know, and that whole side of the family was nothing but negative. Mm. And the only positive influence in my life at that point in time was my father and a few teachers. And people that I ended up kind of adopting as surrogate moms.
Okay.
You know, even though I love my mother to death, she is a very negative person, even now, still. And then working through years of trying to change that so I didn't become that. So.
Okay. What do we want to hear a little more about Kathy's story? What thread do you guys want to pull on?
Change that so I wouldn't become that. For some reason, that really hit me. So I don't know if that is the correct word, but that kind of sentiment.
Well, the one thing I always say is when, like at work, I'm not a therapist. I work in the regular realm of employment. I work for a dealership in an accounting department. But a lot of times when they come up and they, you know, somebody has something negative to say, or they may look at something in a negative way. And I'm like, I always tell them, well, you can't grow unless you know. So you have to take the bad in order to pull out the good. If you can look at the bad things that they're talking about, and instead of being upset and feeling like they're just badgering you and trying to pull something good out of what they're saying, okay, maybe I'm not doing something the right way. What can I do to improve that? What can I do to build on that to have a different outcome? So that's why, you know, I don't know which way to go with any particular topic. You know, there's a lot of different things. I talked to Amanda extensively about several things, but I think they kind of all join in together, but it would have to be going through one or the other.
Kathy, what do you want to be known for?
I like you. I would like to be viral, and I would like to be someone that can change the way that people look at themselves. You know, that you don't always have to take the bad stuff, because the bad stuff is easier to believe than the good stuff. And for me, trying to help people get to the other side, whether they've gone through molestation as from a child, or to being, you know, told that they're nothing, that, you know, you can overcome those. You can overcome that if you have the right mindset to do it, and to be an inspiration for someone to make those positive changes in their life.
Kathy's ready to step into her shoes as a motivational speaker.
Yeah, I'm totally hearing that. So I mean, all I keep getting is like how to say no without being a dick, but I know that's probably a little too like I don't even know if you can say that on TED.
You could say dick, but there's things you could
Yeah.
say, right? How to say no.
Or
Being a jerk.
the gift of the darkness, or overcoming the darkness, or the shadow work is kind of all the rage right now, which I feel like is what you're saying, is you help, you know, you're a light, you shine it on people's darkness to help them come out.
Right.
Okay, great. I'll throw a couple of titles in the ring too for you to consider. I wrote down How I Changed My Family Tree. It's kind of like breaking the cycle. You don't want to be like the previous generation. And then I wrote, is it criticism or verbal abuse? And kind of having that discussion of how you separated your childhood, the words you heard in childhood, from the words that you hear at a workplace, and how you kind of, you know, peeled off some of those layers and things like that.
That's really powerful.
Awesome.
And really digging in, Kathy, to see, are you ready to share the story about your mom if she's still living? Because that to me is a piece of, you know, it's interesting the words you chose. I love her to death. But a space of like, are you ready to own, like, I don't know, but have you shared this with her? Have you shared your experience? Has she been part of your recovery and all of that? Because if that's true and she's a supportive, it could be very healing for you. If you've not said a word, that's an interesting space. And are you ready to embrace that? Because that could open up a really beautiful, in my opinion, can of worms.
Right. And there's a lot of dynamics where my mom is concerned. She is 70, almost 73. But one of the realizations that I had actually over the last year is she is the way that she is because of the way she was raised. By the time she was 18, she had 2 kids. She was in a marriage that my father didn't want to be in.
It's the cycle, right?
It's a cycle.
But you have consciously chosen to break that cycle.
Right. I did, when I was a teenager, I did contemplate suicide constantly. It was something that actually just consumed my every waking thought, because I just wanted to be away from it. I didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
And I had, like I said, a couple of people who stepped into my life who absolutely changed my entire dynamic. And and again, my father was a big part of that, because I always was able to talk to my dad about anything, even though I was nervous and shaking in my shoes.
Right.
But, you know, even as an adult, he would always tell me, it's your life, it's not mine. You know, you have to make your choices, and you have to be willing to live with those choices.
This is, you know, shaping up to be a good story. I'm going to ask you to, you know, have a hero of your story that's not you.
Right.
Go into the storytelling. So you've already got some good ways of your dad. So Gina put in the chat there, the gift of breaking the cycle.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to think about some of these titles we've come up with here, and we're going to move on to Jen. but we're getting good vibes here
Okay.
for you, Kathy. This is going to come together. It's going to be messy, and then it's going to come together. Same with you, Jen. So what are you feeling over there?
So as you know, I have 2 topics, so I like to share both of them and kind of see what resonates more
Great.
with folks, because I think that would be helpful. I can, as you know, I can come at both of these from different, each one has a lot of elements. They're not complete, so they're equally like close to being finished and not all at the same time. So it's about resonating. So the first one is really about how to connect in a divided world. And it's really a story about how I've tackled my own white privilege and how I've learned that for me, the best way to connect with people is that they are desperate to be seen and heard. So being able to see each person as an individual and learn who they are and how they want to be seen and heard is the pathway forward into connecting with people of all walks of life. So that's one topic.
Mm-hmm.
The other topic is it's really around how we're building a generation that is driven by fear and stress and anxiety because of all of the real issues in our schools today, with school shootings, with climate change, with telling this generation that they are our best hope for fixing the future. We're building a generation of kids who really have no capacity to handle what they are being given. And because of that, they really are breaking much earlier. And so really the need out there is, instead of creating a generation that is broken, who goes on to continue to do school shootings and do hard things in the world, we really need to find a way to create kind of a mental wellness program to help them as part of a school curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I raise my hand exponentially for that one,
For the second one.
for the second one.
Okay.
Huge. That is huge, huge, huge. It's a generation. And if I have thought that, and if could bring something in to provide coping skills and how wonderful they are and their miracles, and you don't have to live in fear, that would be amazing.
I just had a dear friend who, on the first day of school, her first grader, they had a shutdown because of a scare. And it's
First
interesting.
day.
First day. Yeah, terrified. And so I think that's a really hot button issue. I personally feel that I gravitate more to the first one because I feel like I feel alone sometimes in a word, but because we're so divided, and I don't understand why we're divided.
Yeah.
And though I think that if you're going for big impact, it's the school one personally.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really good awareness. I like this one, but I think more, hot button. Okay.
Well, it helps kids feel seen and heard too. So whatever age you're at, if you have these skills, you're not going to be the shrinking violet or whatever.
So I have a title for you, Jen, for the second one.
Okay.
Life After 4 School Shootings. And it's punchy. And of course, it's been 4 in the area, not 4 at her school.
Right.
But it speaks to, in Denver, we've had 4. Well, I guess one isn't a school shooting. One is our Aurora. But, life after 3 school shootings is just as impactful. So I'll put
You could say mass shooting.
3 after 4 mass shootings.
I mean, even that title makes me nauseous.
I know. Yes, me too. But
Yeah.
get somebody's attention at TED for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, as long as you have a good solution.
Maxine and Kathy, do you just want to hold up a number, 1 or 2, of what talk you would like to most hear? Maxine is 2. Kathy, you say 1 or 2? I didn't hear you. Oh, on the fence. She's on the fence. I mean, I'm glad she'd like to hear 1. Okay, so we got 2 and 2 for you there, Jen. It's not a great deciding vote. But there's a lot of energy around the second one. There's a lot of, personal heartstrings pulled with the second one too.
I
Okay.
think there's a lot of controversy too, just with the whole NRA, and in some ways it actually ties to the first one because it is a torn thing. You've got the gun rightists, and like, we don't need to go into it because you know all of that, but
Yeah.
there is such a different opposing opinion on like policy around what maybe people think is happening. You're coming to it from a different angle of mental health in the schools. So I just feel like you can have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think so too. And if I was
In the second one, and the second one is just so controversial right now, so I think that's the punch.
it's very
Yeah.
timely. Yeah. And if I was your one-on-one coach, I would say, let's do the second one first and do the first one second.
Okay.
As far as like, your follow-up talk or your, right? Year 2,
Yeah.
come back to give the same keynote and then you're giving this other talk. So
Okay. Cool.
cool. So we moved you guys a little bit. All right, let me just share, this is my homework slide here. We're right at our time. So your big homework is to email me your TED Fresh idea by the end of Friday in 50 words or less. The title is even better. So we talked about a lot of titles. So what did we decide? Title is 12 syllables or less. Since we're going to speak Maxine's language a little bit. So homework is due Friday. Please email me with any questions. Just a quick note on the coaching sessions. You're always welcome to say, Amanda, I need a coaching session. Oh my gosh. But if you don't say that to me, I will definitely prompt you. Okay, I think we're going to do one after, it's either week 2 or week 3. And then we'll do another one later on, like 6 or 7, after 6 or 7. So, but feel free to let me know if you guys think you need to use a coaching session, okay?
Are we going to create a little Facebook group at all or anything? We don't have to. I just have a curiosity.
Yeah, I would like to check in with you guys. Would you prefer an email from me, like kind of checking in on Wednesdays or so? Or would you prefer a running Facebook group you can more chat with each other and things like that? Just hold up like number 1 for email or number 2 if you want to do a Facebook group. 2s to 2s. Jen could go either way. Either way. Okay. All right, let's just do a Facebook group. That's easy for me. I've done it both ways, so great. I'll keep you guys connected. I already emailed you, like, you have everybody's email address. I did not BCC the last email since you guys were all in and ready to go. So if you need to reach out to somebody one-on-one, please do so, or the Facebook group has also worked for that.
Cool.
All right. So what I told you when you signed up was like expect 2 hours of work per week, and this is an hour and a half of it. But I really would encourage you, especially this week, to do that last 30 minutes. Just sit with your idea, massage it around, bounce it off of people. Hey, I'm thinking about giving a TED Talk on this. Is that something you would watch? Right? Especially if they're your target market. If there's someone you want to get the attention of, is this something you would click on? Is this something you have to know more about? And just get it in your lingo. Say your title out loud a few times. See how it feels. All right. Any last questions? Or shall I send you on?
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See your beautiful faces.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank
Wonderful to
you.
see you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.